Stephen Squibbs presents this month's board certification tip.
All right, now we have for our next segment on our show, our monthly board certification tip of the month. And today we have a really special guest. Her name is Stephanie Libbey out of Tampa, and she's one of the folks that passed board cert this past year. Stephanie, how are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Welcome and congratulations on those 3 new initials you have after your name, BCS. Pretty cool, huh?
Yes, it is.
So this is, like a milestone in most attorneys' careers. So congratulations. And you've only been an attorney for 13 or 14 years, right? So this is coming
15, yes.
15 years. So this is coming, at a very good time in your career. And first of all, what did you think of the test?
Which time? I had taken it before, so it was what I expected. I didn't think it was any easier or more difficult than before. And I think, if you attend some of the certification prep stuff, they sort of help you anticipate, but it's your multiple choice segment and your short answer and your essay, so kind of like a bar exam.
Much harder, I think.
Yeah.
And I passed in 2004, and I served on the committee that wrote and graded the test. So I had kind of an inside view of it. And because of the passage rate, there's a lot of criticism that it's not a fair test. And I ask everybody I have on the show that has passed, do you think that this was a fair test?
It's funny, after I reviewed my exam the last time that I took it, and I was a little disenchanted after I saw like my grade and my answers, and I did the whole appeal and ended up getting a few points back, I think, but was still a couple away from passing. And I was actually considering not taking it again, just because I thought, well, I don't understand, I put the stuff in my answers and my essays, and I think, and this time, I if anything, maybe I knew a little bit better how to maybe do the essays, and I would recommend that to anyone who doesn't pass, is to go review your exam. But I think it's meant to do what it does, in the sense that it's, like you said, it's extremely difficult. It's not meant to be easy. And so I think it certainly satisfies that.
So if they tell you all the core and subcore areas, is it safe to say you got to know everything?
Yeah, I think you do.
So not only knowing it and having all these things memorized, the factors, equitable distribution, time sharing, alimony, relocation, you got to apply it. And this is where kind of the time crunch comes in, because you have so many essay questions. You have the true and false and the short answer, and then the ethics question jammed all into one day. And I think the biggest concern that the people we interview have is the lack of time they have to finish everything. And when you passed the test, were you able to answer pretty much every question?
Yes, I was. I was pretty big on time management, just from the first time I took it, and I took it this year. It was all remote because of COVID, and so but even when I took it in person, the way the software works, if you take it by computer, is you can keep a clock, and so you know how much time to allot to pretty much to each section or each answer, and if you're really good at multiple choice, maybe you can reduce your time there and add more to your essays. But yeah, it is, especially when you see a model essay answer. There's no way you're going to write all that in the time that you actually have allotted for the exam. So you really are under a time crunch, and time management is really, really important. Sometimes it's not as important to write down, like you said, every part of 61075, but apply it as well.
I think a lot of people spend a lot of time writing narratives, and the people grading the test don't necessarily need to see narratives. We're fine with lists, with elements, and much more condensed presentation than a formal, briefed answer. And I think a lot of people spend a lot of time making their answer a little more fancy than it needs to be. As a test, someone who grades them, we just want to see the stuff and know how to apply it. And the only thing that frustrates us is bad handwriting when people used to do the blue books. But now I think that's pretty much eliminated, because across the board, I think people are doing it by computer now. Did you even have the option for a blue book 2 years ago when you took it live?
Yes, there was. We were in a hotel, and there was a room for people who wanted to handwrite it. And then there was a room for the people who were taking it on their computers.
Just out of curiosity, what was the percentage of that? Do you know?
There were more. I don't know the percentage, but there were certainly more people in the computer room than there were in the handwriting room.
Yeah, 2004 was totally opposite, because we were all concerned about this software they were putting on our laptops that were new, and all the technical issues. And now last year you dealt with the pandemic, a whole new series of events that change things a little bit, but you still have to deal with. Would you say you were lucky you took it in the pandemic year, or do you think that was kind of distracting the way the test was and how they monitored you, with cameras?
What ended up being nicer was the fact that I wasn't in a room full of people, because when you took it in person, it was, you and then I think an empty seat and then a person next to you. And they might have been taking a tax certification exam or another area. And so they've got books on their desk, and, there's other stuff that you're aware of. Whereas this time around, I was at home in a room by myself with no other people, no other distractions. I was a little nervous about being watched, because they have you put your camera on and
Big brother.
you're sitting right in front of it. But as soon as you start, you forget, you totally blank it out, and you just start going. And then you're more focused on getting as much out as you can in the time that you have. So, there's some pros and some cons to both, I think. But in the end, I thought it ended up working really well, the way that they had to do it.
So when everything is going to be tested, the core topics, the sub-core topics, how do you go about laying that out and putting it in your head and studying for it?
Well, I usually start with the red books, the certification review course books each year. Those are really good about giving you every topic. And then there's sort of the section at the end where they add some additional. I think, a lot of times there's military law or Hague type stuff, some of the things that maybe we don't deal with as much, but that are included on the exam. And I know when you register for the test, they also give you a little outline of the areas that are tested. And that's pretty comprehensive in the sense that there's a lot. And so you just kind of start filling in from there and reviewing things on those issues. And I think everybody knows too, you've got your big ones that are going to come up regardless. And then you have sort of those other ones that maybe we don't deal with as regularly in our practice, but you're still responsible for it. So I usually start with the outline that comes with, signing up for the exam and the areas that you're responsible for, and then going through the red book, because the materials, are fill in most of those categories.
They keep you on track, and they're very, very comprehensive. Any other resources you used, like the Florida Law Weekly Green Books, or a lot of people do that?
I did that too.
There's a little trick. You can order the advance in January and just not get the hard copy of it.
Yes, I did that. I did 2 prior years copies and read those, from beginning to end. And then the red books, I read those as well. Once we had the cert review and we got our hands on the materials. Those were pretty much the 2 resources I think I use the most. And then just looking up the statutes too. Sometimes it isn't often that we read 6108 from beginning to end, or 61075 or, some of the other ones that we deal with all the time, but maybe we're just looking at one thing or one issue. And so I found it helpful in some cases to just look up the statute and read it. Some of the main ones, especially if they have elements and so on and so forth, because I think we just think we know them. And then when you actually have to think about it, you realize that you don't know the entire thing.
And did you notice, having taken the test more than once, were there like some trends that you saw with recent case laws being addressed or anything like that?
I don't know so much about trends, but definitely the big cases, the seminal cases, whether it's a district split kind of case and maybe a recent decision has come down, or if there's a big, I'd say any of the Supreme Court ones or any of the ones that, you hear being discussed maybe the last 2 years over and over, and maybe finally there's a decision on or something. I would say no, the big cases.
And we have all these factors for all these different elements of family law. How did you go? Did you memorize all the factors, or did you use mnemonics? How did you approach that?
I actually did flashcards for those. I just found it easy, if you're 61075, if you're dealing with, the factors for an unequal distribution, I just put them on a flashcard, and that way I had them really quick to reference. And, even the day before, the night before, if you just want to review a few things, I found that easy because it wasn't like having to go through a whole outline or go through the whole statute. It just set out, little factors for me, but that's just what worked for me.
So did you keep track of how many hours you actually studied for or anything like that?
I had heard in the past, because I think, attended the Cert review tips and nibbles and talked to some other people who had taken the exam. And I think a lot of people throw around like the 100 hours number. And I think that was my goal. I think I was right around it. But I think it's maybe more the quality of your studying and how you learn best. But I was in the end right around 90 to 100 hours.
So that's a pretty neat accomplishment. Did you, when you got that letter in the mail, was it an email or a letter?
It was an email.
So how quickly did it come in before you read it? Was it sitting there for a while, or did you?
No, I think I pounced. I right away, but it came in earlier than I expected it. I think they said, they expect results by like June 1st or whatever it was, May 31st, June 1st. And I think it came in several days before that. So I wasn't expecting it. And so I definitely pounced.
And that had to have been a great feeling.
It was just because I think anyone that takes the test puts some time and energy into it no matter what. And so it especially having, gotten the opposite response before, it was nice to get the "you have passed."
So, it's tough to fail at anything, but, chances are you're going to fail this test your first time. The numbers prove that. And you mentioned you were a little discouraged getting back on the horse. What really motivated you to do it?
Well, my boss is board certified, and he was really pushing me, and just didn't really, he didn't really give me the option of not taking it, in a nice way, in a very encouraging way. But he was like, "You got to do it again. You have to." And I think reviewing it, while it discouraged me a little bit, it was helpful. Just because I think if anything, you have to take something away from it by looking at, what you did versus maybe what more they were looking for, or maybe how better to appease the grading type of system. And that's really what, you're not writing for anybody else, you're writing for the people that are grading the exam. So I was certainly encouraged to do it again. And I think too, once you re-up your application and then you start studying, you're in, like, you're committed.
And realistically, the people who write this test are not professional test writers. They're smart board certified attorneys. And 2 years ago, there was additional challenges that actually changed the result of two persons' grades. So your suggestion to go read it, not only to get a gist of what they were expecting, but potentially, to challenge the committee's denial of your grade, is an opportunity that I don't think a whole lot of people know, that you have that ability to go see the test and do the challenge. And there's just a whole bunch of little time, if you do it, there's all these time requirements that you have to be very mindful of, because they're pretty harsh. So Stephanie, anything else you want to share with our viewers of sage wisdom, and if they were thinking of taking the test or getting ready to take the test, what words of advice would you offer?
Oh, I think at the very least, you don't hurt yourself by taking it. If anything, you learn no matter what. You're going to take something away from it, pass or fail. And I know plenty of attorneys that have taken it, once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and they haven't passed, but they've never regretted taking it, because they've all acknowledged that you become a better attorney just for studying for it. So I don't think there's anything to lose. You learn so much, and just going through the materials. And I think it's a little humbling too, because it makes you realize
how much you don't know.
After reviewing my exam the last time, I realized, like, I'm not very good at multiple choice. I get really tripped up on some of those. So I spent a little bit more time on some of the little things, like jurisdictional stuff, and where they can, do little tricks. But yeah, I think it makes you a better attorney just having gone through the process. And I would encourage anybody to do it.
Yeah, I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to be a master of your craft, especially if something that's as harsh as what we do and brutal, why not strive to be better? And that's always been my attitude. I encourage everybody. That's why we have the show. So Stephanie, thank you so much for your time. We know you're super busy and your hourly rate just went up. So thank you for contributing to our listeners, and we really appreciate all of your tips.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this month's edition of Stephen Squibb's Monthly Family Law CLE. We hope to see you again next month. In the meantime, do something that matters. Visit www.eddiestevens.com for more information.